The story begins in a mythical world where people's souls are in animal forms. Called demons. Adult demons can't alter the shape, while children's can. We observe Lord Azrael walking with his snow leopard demon. Stone Maria. There are several planets connected by dust. A girl named Lyra Balaqua makes some mud ball while her demon Pan sits on her shoulder. A boy named Billy chases Roger. Lyra and Roger run across town with other children. She informs the others that they can't enter the college because the doors are curt. Now Lyra and Pan enter a big hall. So Master and Fra Pavel approach. So they hide in, encumbered to watch. When the Master leaves, Lyra sees Pavel putting powder in a wine bottle. Before Lyra and Pan leave, Stone, Maria, Azrael and Hunt enter. Azrael pours a glass of wine after Hunt leaves, but Lyra stops him before he can consume it. Azrael, her uncle, asks if she saw a magisterium man put the powder in the carafe. As others arrive, he tells Lyra to hurriedly hide. Azrael gives the men a projected image of a man and his demon after they're seated. He says it's from Salvard, the Ice Bear Kingdom, he says. It's dust from the sky entering the man's body through his demon. He says it's from an invisible world. For approval from the magisterium dislikes Azrael. And Azrael dislikes him too. Azrael informs the college board that he plans to research the Albar if he has the money. Azrael scolds Lyra outside for hiding in a closet. He tells her not to say dust when she speaks about it to him. Lyra and Roger are discussing Gobbler was on the college. Mrs. Lonsdale calls Lyra from a window. Mrs. Coulter walks into a large hall full of instructors and pupils and tells Lyra she met Ragnar. Store lesson. Mrs. Coulter's dog holds Pan. Mrs. Coulter wants Lyra as an assistant when she returns and then she requests the Master to borrow Lyra. Outside in the tiny alley, Billy and Roger are walking and talking. Billy's demon Ratter climbs the wall, but the monkey catches him, the magisterial emissary. The first and second high counselors plan against Azrael. In a dark room. The next day, the Master gives Lyra a golden compass and tells her not to tell Mrs. Coulter about it. Outside, Mrs. Coulter is set to leave on an airship for the city. And Lyra wants to say farewell to Roger. He's missing. They arrive in the city and take a weird car to Mrs. Coulter's residence. When Lyra is alone in her chamber with Pan, she doesn't comprehend how the golden compass works. One evening, they argue about Lyra's shoulder bag. Lyra's mother informs her she can't wear it in the house and sends her to her room. Lyra's mad. They searched Mrs. Coulter's office and find what looks like a list of children. Mrs. Coulter may be connected to the gobbler. Before Pan can return to her chamber, Mrs. Coulter finds her upstairs, and she realizes the monkey isn't there. Lyra finds the monkey looking at the compass in her room. Then Pan changes into an eagle and snatches the compass from the monkey, and he calls Lyra over. They flee through a dark street. 3 men corner Lyra in a warehouse. She ducks through a door and a net falls over her. She is saved by Mark Costa, Billy's mother, and a gang of Egyptians. Lyra meets Lord Faa, the Egyptian king, on a magnificent sailing ship. Farder Coram, Lord Faa, asks whether she's forgotten anything. Farder Coram, teach us how to use the golden compass. But he can't. Lyra focuses on the compass and sees pictures of where the missing children may have been taken. We see a guarded facility with many children. As in a school, a woman asks Billy to write to his mother. But he doesn't want to write the lies. They're feeding him. Pavel and Mrs. Coulter walk the magisterium grounds. She tells Pavel that Lyra possesses the golden compass, but can't use it. Mrs. Coulter Aide gives her a box containing 2 metallic drone-like insect that can locate Lyra. They leave. Azrael walks through snow. Asriel walks through snow-capped mountains in the far north. Samoyed natives attack him. P and Still Maria tried to escape, but are captured. Samoyed, Manhave, wolf demons. Lyra is looking at the golden compass when two drone insects appear. Lyra drops the compass as one fights Pan. One tries to take the compass, while the other attacks Lyra. But she ducks and hits it with a stick. Barter Coram catches the last one. Lord Fog promises to punish the gobblers. Lyra and Pan are on deck at night when a woman appears. She's a witch named Serafina Pacala. Kaisa, her demon, is absent. She tells Lyra the children are involved in guarded by Tartars with wolf demons. Lyra will find aid at Troll Island, Norway. Serafina flies away. Lyra encounters Lee Scoresby and his demon Hester the next day. At Tralla Sun, he tells Lyra he's helping an armored bear named Lorik Burnison. Scoresby says Lorik can aid her with her mission. She searches for Lorik Burnison. Lyra and Coram find Lorik behind Narson's tavern and offer him work. But he says he's working for the townspeople. Lyra finds out that he's compensated in whiskey. Fantastic, a drunk bear. Lyra is disappointed in Lorik, but he says the townspeople drank him to sleep. Ice bears can't fight or go to war without armor. He was exiled from Svalbard after losing a bear fight. Lyra glances at the compass and sees that Laura Coprince has lost everything. She tells him where his armor is. He asks her name, then joins her campaign. Then he rushes to Trollus End to reclaim his armor with Lyra and Pan. Outside the office, armed troops are waiting for Lorik to arrive. Lorik in armor breaks through the wall by the door, growling at everyone. Scoresby puts a gun to the captain's head and warns him not to fire. The magisterial emissary tells Pavel the Egyptians are headed to Balvangar and must be stopped. Pavel's emissary sends Mrs. Coulter to find Lyra. Mrs. Coulter's airship travels north. Lyra, Scoresby and Lorik are traveling in with the Egyptians. They camp overnight in some Wyoa territory. Lyra observes a small cabin in the next valley while looking at the compass. She asks Lorik to accompany her to the cabin. Hundreds of witches fly above them. Lyra enters the cabin alone. She's terrified to find Billy under a cover. He lost his demon. Lyra calls the demon's removal. Intercession. Laura takes Billy back to camp. On Lorik's back, Makasta is happy to have her son back. The Samoyed guy suddenly attacked them. The Egyptian scores beyond Lorik are fighting them back. Some Samoyed warriors grab Lyra. They take her to his field bard. Scoresby and Lorik fly to spy Albar to rescue Lyra. Lyra tells Ragnar she is Lorik's demon. And if you want, sir, he must face Laura Kern. Laura approaches field bard and Lyra watches as Ragnar prepares for battle. Lyra informs Lorik about Ragnar. Lorik's glad to fight Ragnar again. Lorik is losing when he stares at Lyra. He comes back stronger, defeating Ragnar. Laura is now the Ice Bear King. Lyra takes Lorik to Balvangar. They reach a shaky ice bridge at 11,954. Liarik waits as Lyra crosses alone. She runs across a collapsing bridge, and Lorik asks her to wait for him. Lyra doesn't wait. As Lyra approaches, a man unlocks the door and tells her to come inside. She enters under a false name. He takes her to the children's dining room. There she finds Roger and tells him about her plan to save the children. He shows her a private room. Mrs. Coulter's airship arrives, and she and some servants enter Lyra's room. Mrs. Coulter informs them, Lord Asriel bribed his captors and set up a lab in the far north. But soldiers are on their way. Then she leaves. But the staff capture Lyra. They place her in the interception chamber. Mrs. Coulter stops the machine before it can be used. Lyra wakes up close to Pan. Mrs. Coulter is glad Lyra is okay. Mrs. Coulter reassures Lyra with a story. Mrs. Coulter is Lyra's mother. And the Lord Asriel is her father. Mrs. Coulter asked Lyra for the compass. And she offered. Enter the tin with the drone insect. Instead of the compass. When the tent is opened, Mrs. Coulter is stung and falls to the floor. Lyra flees. She destroys the interception room. All the children run outside with Lyra. But the Tar regiments, wolf demons stop them. Lorik kills the wolf. Their captain ordered to attack Lyra. The children escape the Tartar soldiers. Seraphina kills the captain. As he prepares to strike Lyra with his sword. All the witches helped Lyra and the children. Lorik is tied down with hooks. After hard to combat, the gyptians joined the battle. Scoresby arrives and shoots Lorik's attackers. Lorik escapes when he shoots some ropes. Lorik stands and growls after the battle. Families will unite with their children. Farah admires Lyra. Lyra and Roger board Scoresby's airship with Lorik and Seraphina. To save Lord Asriel. Lyra promises Roger they'll sort out a few future issues. While they fly through the night,